Hi, everyone, and welcome to Narrative Performance, Research Data to Interactive Performance. I want to start with a brief history of performance studies because that's where performing our data comes from, and to just give you a brief overarching history of that discipline. It began with the elocutionary movement of the 1900s, and during this time period, we realized that if someone could move and speak and be aware of the cultural content that someone of the upper class knew, they could transcend their social class. And for this reason, people who are from working class backgrounds would take classes to learn to speak well, to be able to read aloud great texts of their culture in order to impress people and to be able to pass for upper class and to get more opportunities. This was a fundamental piece of being a member of the upper class. Sometimes when people would have parties, they would read to people for entertainment from great literary works and poetry. In 1950s, we started really analyzing what happens when a piece of literature is performed instead of just read silently to oneself. What happens between the performer, the audience, and the text, and what new meanings take place? We shifted away from text in the 1960s and said, well, we don't have to just focus on literature. We can examine how people perform in culture, their daily interactions. And so we started performing narrative research. We started performing our own stories later in the 1980s as autoethnography. So there was this shift, beginning with desire to master speech and to become a member of the upper class, speaking properly and saying the right things and showing that you knew the right literature, to moving to the daily performance, both the stories others tell and the stories we tell ourselves, and how that moment on stage creates a relationship between the audience and the performer that brings new meanings and insights that might not come just from reading. Fundamental to this idea of performing our data is performativity. And it's the idea that essentially we become who we are through performing ourselves with others. You move through the world, people watch you and interact with you. You see how they're interacting with you, and you change your behavior, or you understand your own behavior more deeply. I'll give you an explanation. I have a friend who, throughout her life, was very, very overweight. And then she got gastric bypass surgery and became an average sized person. And she said, I can't believe it, Julianne. I always thought the world was just unfriendly. Strangers never made eye contact with me. They tried to pull away, to not get too close to me. Now that I'm an average sized person, people compliment my clothes all the time. They smile at me. They move over to invite me to sit by them. She says the world is different through this smaller body. Okay? So there is this idea of we become who we are through reiteration. And it's not just individual. We learn what it means to perform gender and what people expect a body they read as male or female to behave like. And of course, we can resist this. We can be subversive and do things people aren't expecting us to do. Same thing with how we perform sexuality, how we perform race. People have expectations. Those expectations are in power relations, and we can reiterate those expectations, or we can be subversive. Of course, being subversive can come with pushback, can come with consequences, can come with danger. And there's this interplay of performativity as we negotiate ourselves in relation to others. And performing stories is part of this practice. There is this thing of how do we make meaning? We say, let me tell you a story of what happened to me. And that's how we connect and understand one another. Now, remember that there is a focus under the new ethnography, under critical ethnography, to start telling the participants' stories from their perspective. That it's okay to be emotionally involved, to help them co-create a story of your relationship with them. So rather than being worried that they might corrupt the data, to see that as an opportunity to see what really matters to them. Always be aware of power relations that comes with this interpretation. Whenever somebody gives you their story, you can always do anything with it. So be as open, be as self-reflexive, realizing your biases and your agenda and how to make sure you are giving the most accurate understanding of this piece of their lives, the story they gave you, and of the story of yourself, the people in it that you can at this moment in time through research and reflection. Remember, a performance studies ethic, when we come to embodying another on the stage, is that we act morally. We want to make a difference in the world, to contribute the quality of life and enliven the possibilities for people we study. If you choose to perform the story of another, to showcase a culture, do it with an act to advocate, to promote understanding and empathy. Don't turn it into an expose to show how horrific someone is. So, when embodying another story, commit to careful listening and telling another stories in their words. What an honor it is. Recently, my students performed narratives from work I did with people who have seizure disorders. And the people, when they saw that show, were so moved that someone took the time to memorize what they said verbatim and share it with an audience. It's a powerful thing to do. It's moving to care for someone's words, to give them that attention. So make sure you take the time to truly connect with that language and share it with another. Make sure you take time to empathize with their experience. How are they making you feel? And how are they feeling? Read their emotions. Display that emotion for the audience to recreate that interaction in a way that keeps their anonymity. That's the wonderful thing about performing personal narrative. Someone may not want to have a documentary where their face is showcased to the world. But having their story told by another, with them keeping that confidential relationship, that anonymity, can be powerful and important. Now remember, you also need to, when you're performing the story, we're going to do research, connect the story to broader cultural phenomena. You're telling a story, what do we learn about not just that person, but their cultural situation? This idea of becoming a world traveler, you're probably not going to go far. You're going to learn the stories of people around you. But remember that you are going into their world. You're embodying their story for others. And in that moment, we have an opportunity to identify and understand and empathize, and perhaps even see us as they see us, to get more insights into ourselves. So do that with care. Make sure when you're performing another's story that you would be comfortable with them seeing it. Would it honor them? Or would they feel you were making a mockery of them? If you're carefully wanting to embody their words as they told them because they experienced a story that matters to you, it will be successful. Any other motive is problematic. Here are some of the traps we fall into. An enthusiast infatuation is shallow over-identification. Dwight Conquergood would say it's this idea of, well, really, we're all alike. I completely understand. There's no difference between you and me. Yes, there is. And the story is theirs. And when you embody it, you want to do it with care. There's also the curator's exhibitionist, and that's wanting to wow and shock an audience, trying to find the most absurd story you can so that audiences' eyes go wide and their jaws drop, that people want to see it. It becomes clickbait because look at this. That's something you don't want to do either. You don't want to just shock. Now, sometimes a story is shocking, but you want to tell it as it was told to you, not change it or take out pieces to make it more shocking than it actually is. The custodian's ripoff is lazy analysis, is deciding that you're going to portray it this way because it's easy and it's what people will expect without really taking the time to empathize and understand the phenomenon from that person's experience. And then there's the skeptic's cop-out saying, well, I really can't know anything outside of my own body, so I'm not even going to bother to try. All of these are negative. What we want is loving perception, and where we try as best we can to understand, empathize, see it from that person's perspective as well as we can, and communicate that perspective to an audience. So share that person's experience without judgment. Remain in dialogue with the audience to talk through misconceptions and make connections. We want our storytellers' time and energy to result in increased understanding and inclusion. That doesn't mean you have to pretend someone is better than they are. I have a picture here of my son, Tony, because my most recent work that I've done performance ethnography has been seizing. And in seizing, my students embodied stories of seizures because Tony wanted to hear more stories of seizing. Now, some of those stories aren't particularly flattering. Sometimes they're a little bit embarrassing. Sometimes that person comes across in what could be unflattering ways. That's okay. We don't want to scrub it clean so it is something that it's not. What we want to do is not make a spectacle and perform it in a way that it did not occur in order to get a reaction from the audience. And in our reflections, in our artist statements, in our analyses, we can say there's clearly a power relation going on here, a power relation that makes me uncomfortable. It's okay to say that, to say, according to the literature, this is something that is further marginalizing people, what this person is saying. That's okay to do. What we don't want to do is to make that person into this villain that we're no longer sharing their story in a way that is honoring the story as they told it. That's all I have, and I'm excited to see what kinds of artistic representations of your narrative data appear.